Days before the primary, there is still a lot of deciding to do. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jackie Borchert, State House reporter for Cleveland.com. Julie Carr Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press. Herb Asher, Ohio State political scientist. And Terry Casey, Republican strategist. It is the final weekend before the Ohio primary, and it appears a lot of likely voters still have not made up their minds. First to the Republican primary for governor. A new Baldwin Wallace University poll shows Mike DeWine with a healthy lead, 52% to 25% over Mary Taylor, but 25% of likely Republican voters remain undecided, at least according to the poll. Perhaps that relatively high undecided number is why DeWine is taking nothing for granted, spending millions of dollars in the last week on TV ads to counter claims in Taylor's ads that DeWine is not a Trump conservative. Julie Carr Smythe, that poll said that only 42% of Ohioans would vote for Donald Trump. But they're still trying to out-Trump each other on the GOP side. Why is that?
Right. Well, I think everybody is trying to really guess where Trump supporters are going to go this week in this Tuesday election, because he's very popular with a certain segment, especially of those who are already affiliated with the Republican Party. And so they're trying to figure out it's really a badge of honor if they can be associated with him and be more Trump than the last person. And even with him coming to the state, right here toward the end, and them wanting to capitalize on that.
And Neil Newhouse was in Columbus this week, national pollster, and he made the point, I think in Ohio, among Republicans, Trump's numbers are even higher. I think there's something like 86 to 11. So among Republicans, it means something. I mean, the two Senate candidates, one is actually backed by Trump. The other one does his commercial to make it seem like he's backed by Trump. So there's primaries, Democrat or Republican, people do different things than they do in the fall.
Jackie, but is it because of the undecided number? Do you think that their ads are everywhere? They're like back-to-back-to-back ads. When you're watching TV, it's Taylor slamming DeWine, DeWine slamming Taylor. Maybe Cordray sneaks in there once in a while, but it's just all Taylor DeWine ads. For a guy with a 25-point lead.
Well, I think part of that is damage control. You know, DeWine and Taylor, they did not debate. They, when they're at the same event, they're not necessarily responding to each other's claims. So some of these DeWine ads attacking Mary Taylor are him fighting back. It's a way for him to push back on some of these extremely nasty attacks that they've become in the recent days. And ridiculous, if you ask some Republicans. It's his way of fighting back. You know, the question after Tuesday becomes, how badly did this primary on both sides, Republican and Democratic, how badly did it beat up that candidate going into the fall? And part of that is if DeWine can do some of that damage control and unpacking now, and we're also seeing Jim Renacci do some of the same thing, then going into the fall, there's some logic that maybe that better positions them for the attacks from the other side.
Yeah, that 25% that's undecided, they probably won't be voting.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how high is that number in the governor's race at this late stage?
Well, it's a little surprising, but only because, the candidates are relatively well known. But I just have the sense that in a primary, turnout, people claim they're going to vote in the primary, they don't vote. The undecideds are least likely to vote. What I found interesting about this campaign is that while every Republican is talking about their conservative credentials, Mike DeWine has not as closely linked himself to Donald Trump as so many other Republicans in other races in this primary election. And I think that's savvy. I'm a conservative and I'll support the president where appropriate, but he's not talking in the same way as Mary Taylor is or Renacci is or
The one issue where DeWine has stressed that he's with Trump is on immigration. I think his latest ad talks about he supports the wall, all that good stuff.
Because Mary was hitting him. And I might show, you haven't mentioned about mail, and this is one piece where they did a little Photoshop on Mary Taylor and her eyes. But I mean, the mail, and we'll talk later about the 12th district, but the mail that you're getting is just unbelievable. And then we haven't got hit yet too much in the 12th district on phone calls, but I think they're coming this weekend.
So what is the turnout prediction, Julie? Do we know?
Well,
is there any way of telling?
It just, I feel like it's going to be kind of low. The undecided factor just seems strange. And then you've got the fact that the Democratic side was supposed to have this huge surge from the gun issue, and I think the NRA fought back on that. And so of course, it'll depend on the weather, and time will
Yep.
tell.
But my sense of talking to some Board of Elections officials around Ohio, the number of requests for mail ballots or the walk-in ballots, it's a certain amount, but it's not any big sign that's that heavy.
So does low turnout help Mary Taylor? Because are her supporters going to be more enthusiastic to come out if she is the Trump candidate?
You could maybe argue that, but you could also argue there's a lot of hardcore Main Street Republicans, and they're the ones, the courthouse, the Main Street Republicans, they're the ones that for sure are going to vote.
Who turn out all the time for primaries.
Right. Yeah, they're used to doing primaries.
But we do have to remember that many people switched over from Democrat to Republican to vote for Trump, or possibly Kasich last time around. And so they're going to walk in and get a Republican ballot unless they ask for a Democratic one. So it could be that that affects the outcome on the Republican side as well.
If they show up, because I still think there's a lot of people with the sewer system that's out there in terms of all the advertising, the mail. A lot of people say, rightly or wrongly, safest thing is don't vote. And that way, after the election, I can say, don't blame me.
All right. The Democratic race for governor seems a little more murky than the Republican race. The Baldwin Wallace poll shows Richard Cordray with a healthy 16-point lead over his closest rival, Dennis Kucinich. Joe Schiavone and Bill O'Neill are pretty far back, but look at that undecided number. 4 in 10 likely Democrats say they are unsure for whom they will vote. Herb Asher, why so many undecided in the Democratic race?
I think they have 4 choices. 2 of the names they definitely don't know. The other 2 names they might know something about. But this has not been, unlike the Republican primary, there's, at least on television, there's not been an awful lot of advertising, and there hasn't been the histrionics and the passion on the Democratic. Every once in a while, Kucinich will get it going and try to rile things up, but it's not the same kind of event as we're seeing on the GOP side.
And Kucinich needed to be on TV, particularly outside the Cleveland market, because an awful lot of people in Dayton, Cincinnati, Toledo, Columbus don't really know him. For some, that's good for Kucinich. For some, it's kind of bad, but he's just not that well known in roughly the 65% of the rest of the state outside Cleveland market.
I feel like we always hear that voters don't appreciate negative advertising, but it definitely gives them something to hold on to. Even if they say, oh, I feel really badly for Mike DeWine, I mean, Mary Taylor's beating him up, or if they say, I think Mary Taylor might be right about what she says about DeWine, it's still something. It's a conversation. And if there's, it's hard to just have a biographical ad out and expect people to.
Yeah, and on the Democratic side, what's the major issue they're talking about? I mean, certainly Kucinich has gone after Cordray on guns, but that's all there is there on his side.
Well, and he's done the gun thing, but unless you were some of the 200 or 300 people, maybe Cincinnati market was a little higher, but very few people watched the debates, and it hadn't really gotten.
Yeah.
There's a potential issue there, but Kucinich hadn't exploited.
Jackie, do we know why Dennis Kucinich hasn't done a lot of TV, if any? Is it money? Is it?
I think it's a combination of money. He claims that he's running more of a traditional populist campaign where he's meeting with voters across the state, traveling the state. His campaign every couple days makes a point to get it out there, all the different places he's been across the state and different things that he's involved in. He's got a pretty aggressive get out the vote plans for the weekend, including appearances with Nina Turner, who, former state senator, and now is kind of leading the Bernie Sanders, his campaign, that the post-election version of his campaign, along with Danny Glover, who also was, Bernie supporters.
Dave Matthews concert.
He had a Dave Matthews Band concert. There are ads on TV that seem to help him, but they're actually being funded by a Republican.
We have that ad.
Oh, yeah.
The little cross-party mischief in this race, a big Republican donor from Cleveland is running an ad saying Richard Cordray is too conservative. from a Republican.
Why do Republicans like Rich Cordray so much? He has an A+ rating from the NRA, and he hurt consumers by quitting his job as America's consumer watchdog so Trump could appoint his replacement. And he's lost to DeWine before. Democrats are supposed to be for working people. Democrats are supposed to be for responsible gun ownership. Rich Cordray is for neither. We can't win with Republican light. Is Rich Cordray really a Democrat? Paid for by Citizens Policy Institute, not affiliated with any candidate or campaign committee.
Did you get all that? Jackie, what's the backstory on this guy, first of all?
So that is a political action committee that is headed up by Tony George. He's a Cleveland area businessman, owns his company owns a bunch of restaurants in the Cleveland area. He's a big political donor, very active, and if you call him up, he'll tell you flat out who he supports and why.
He's maxed out how much he can give to Mary Taylor.
He has maxed out. Mary Taylor is his candidate. Maxed out what he gave to her. He's given $250,000, I believe, to her super PAC. So clearly that's his horse that he's hitched his wagon to, and so this ad is just it's funny because you talk to the Kucinich folks and they're saying, well, we don't have a comment on this. This has nothing to do with us, but clearly, and this isn't the only example. We've seen this cycle where a ad is put out to encourage voters toward a primary candidate of the opposite, party.
It's designed to hurt the more formidable general election.
Yeah, the strategy is you want to choose your opponent that you think you have a better chance of beating in the general.
Does this mischief ever work, Herb?
Sometimes. Democrats have actually, in the past, in Nevada, for example, actually messed around in Republican primaries and wound up giving Harry Reid a weaker candidate to run against. I mean, one of the things to watch out with so much money out there, and in many cases you don't even know the sources. Here at least we know it's Tony, but with so much dark money, if you were a conservative dark money group, you'd want, in fact, Dennis Kucinich to get the nomination because you believe that he would be the weakest candidate in November, and he would probably be another Ed Fitzgerald who would get 35% of the vote or whatever. And in doing that, Kucinich would drag down every Democrat, including probably Sherrod Brown. So this is really mischief, and both parties have a history of it. But again, when there's so much money out there, and you can't find good outlets for it, let's play around.
But I don't think that ad got that much play or that much money behind it. So you might have aired it, but this is the first time I've seen the ad. I haven't seen it on real television.
Do you know what the buy is for this ad?
No, I
We
don't.
Yeah. We're probably giving it more pub than it's getting on the thing.
But I was just going to say that it is very interesting that on the Republican side, I think there is a real dogfight, if you will, that they actually think that they each could win and that they each could win in the general election. Where on the Democratic side, there's just sort of this playing around with, obviously, Democratic groups would swoop in for whoever gets elected if they win, if it's Schiavone or O'Neill.
Yep.
But right now, it's just anybody's guess.
Cordray gets a lot of fault for being low-key, which he is. He's a low-key guy.
Be bland like
Bland.
the plain dealer did.
And his ads are nice. They're nice, but they're no name-calling Mary Taylor ads that Mike DeWine is
But sometimes late at night you want to be able to go to sleep, and it helps you do that.
So I mean, how much of a hindrance is that to him in the primary, and then if he does win, moving on to the general?
It'll be important in the general election for Cordray to do two things. One, to demonstrate sort of enthusiasm and vision. And vision is both sort of the content of what you stand for and then how you present it. So he does have to, I think, be more high energy. But I found some of the coverage right now, in the plain dealer especially, saying, "Oh, bland is bad. I'm sorry, that is so shallow. That's absurd," or whatever. Content's more important, but I'm a political scientist, so we care about these
Well,
things.
and I've talked to Democrats who say, you know what, bland sounds pretty good right now. And we've got Trump in the White House, and it's not all about being a flashy, candidate that can punch back. It's
And Mike DeWine's happy to not have an opponent for the fall who's going to be Mr. Charisma. So he doesn't need to worry about that.
But we have to remember, too, I mean, people who in this state who follow national politics, many of them know who Rich Cordray is and what he did in Washington, which was not bland at all. I mean, he did some pretty tough things. And, I think they're counting on the fact that there's at least some people out there who don't need to be reminded of that, because they don't seem to be reminding people too much, other than bringing Elizabeth Warren in.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
putting
maybe
Barack Obama in your ads.
Right, and so I think that it's a matter of definition, what you say. I mean, he's not a charismatic stump speaker and that kind of thing.
Cordray wants to get through the primary with a decent margin of victory and have the party relatively unified and then move on to November and decide what are the cluster of issues. And one of the things he really hasn't talked about very much is directly Ohio problems. He's talked a little bit about ECOT and some other misdeeds or whatever, but he'll have to get have to really have a focus. What does he stand for, and why should you choose him over his opponent, Mike DeWine, assuming DeWine wins?
The hottest local congressional race is in the 12th district. That's Pat Tiberi's old seat. There are 6 Democrats and 9 Republicans running in their primaries. Most of the action appears on the Republican side with the 4 leading candidates, State Senators Kevin Bacon and Troy Balderson, Liberty Township trustee Melanie Lenahan, and Delaware County prosecutor Carol O'Brien. Terry Casey, how is this race going to shake out?
Well, basically, from what I'm hearing, it's down to a 2-person race between Melanie and Troy Balderson. As far as those are the 2 main people, they've got the most on TV. They've also got people attacking and counterattacking. So the other people are really fighting for who's in 3rd place. The battle is between 1 and 2, who's going to finish first. And one of the interesting questions is, how does the Pat Tiberi endorsement affect things? Because a lot of what this battle is about is who's in or from the swamp, who's the establishment. There's all these battles, including Club for Growth that was against Trump is now attacking Balderson for not being for Trump. So there's all kind of twists and turns.
I think it's a barometer of the whole country, honestly, that Republican primary, because you're looking at, here's Tiberi, who's been in there for decades almost, and he's given his endorsement to, people must assume, the more moderate of the 2, and then the other candidate is saying, I'm Trump, I'm all in, and it's really, it's a bellwether within the bellwether of Ohio of how are Republicans going to parse this whole thing on Tuesday.
But Jackie, it's just not a 2-person race, though. I mean, Kevin Bacon will get some votes.
Right.
He's a sitting state senator, suburban Columbus, Westerville area. Carol O'Brien, sitting prosecutor. They're not going to be just at 5%, and that split vote could lead to something.
That's exactly a concern that I've heard from several Republicans, that they could split what's seen as the mainstream Republican, establishment Republican vote, and that would push Lenahan ahead. And there is some concern that her being the more conservative, more Trumpian candidate could really hurt them in the general. As this is a race that people are looking at from across the country. There's a huge national interest in it, as it might be, a blue wave district, something that might, it might add momentum to the national effort to flip districts, and that's concerning to some Republicans.
How far to the right is Melanie Lenahan? I mean, she's not. I mean, she's got the Jim Jordan support, so she has to be pretty far out there. But is she like a Roy Moore, far out there that really would make the Republicans vulnerable?
Well, I don't think she's had any sexual harassment problems. I got to defend her on that. But she's so far out. When Kevin Bacon did an ad saying he's the most conservative of all the candidates, I asked him, how could you be any more to the edge of the flat earth than that? I mean, she's ultra conservative, and she'll also allude, and she's told people that God has told her to run and a few other things like that. So there's no doubt she's real conservative. I heard her at one of the debates. She almost was for totally abolishing government till some people said, don't we need a military and don't we need roads? I mean, she is rock rib conservative. The question is, how far do people want to go?
Yeah.
As Jackie said, many Democrats are wishing her success on Election Day because they really do believe, as Terry just said, she is so far to the right that when you get to a general election electorate, either Democrat, who either the sheriff or the county officer, either one could beat her, assuming that it's a reasonably decent Democratic year.
Let's remind people you got to vote twice in that 12th district for the one that goes on to the August runoff for the rest of this term. And then you've got to vote again for the person nominated to run in November for the next 2 years. So
let's get to that Democratic side. It's less crowded, and 2 candidates, as Herb mentioned, have emerged as frontrunners: Franklin County Recorder Danny O'Connor and former Franklin County Sheriff Zach Scott. Herb, is this Danny O'Connor's race to lose? He's the one who seems to have the most money.
He has
Franklin
money,
County likes him.
Yeah, he has the money, the institutional support. In part, he's running because the Franklin County Democratic Party doesn't like Zach Scott, so they really pushed Danny into the race. But I think what's clear here right now, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter which candidate wins, but the party's going to be united. I've talked to many Democrats who perhaps Zach Scott is not their first choice, But in fact, if he wins the primary, they're going to be supporting him, especially if Melanie Lenahan is the Republican nominee, and they see that this is a seat they can actually pick up.
And remember, this district is much bigger than just Franklin County, because in at least the Republican vote, Franklin County's, I think, like 28% of the vote. Delaware's 32, Licking County's 26. So the geography, it's a big, diverse geography.
So Zach Scott, is he focusing on those two counties and sort of writing off, or at least just not worrying as much about Franklin County?
I think if they are fighting in this county, then they are forgetting that there's a huge rural component to this, and what, 6 or 8 candidates still in that primary?
And a law and order sheriff, you'd think would do better in a rural area.
Right.
If he, Zach Scott with his uniform on and his campaign ads and things like that.
What some people are forgetting, I mean, obviously, it was a district drawn to be favorable to the Republicans, but that district was also favorable to Pat Tiberi. And what happens with a good incumbent is that incumbent builds a personal constituency, so you can't simply go back and look at, oh, what's Pat's margins? That district is not that Republican. And of course, in the past, the Democrats never even challenged Pat because he was so popular. So I think the Democrats are not being delusional to think that they can pick this seat up, especially if the Republicans go so far to the right.
Well, the national indexes have said it's a toss-up or slightly leaning Republican.
In a normal year, it's about a +7 Republican, and of course, this year might not be a normal year.
All right. Last topic, he's no longer in office, but former House Speaker Cliff Rosenberger's travel log continues to get attention. The Cincinnati Enquirer this week listed Rosenberg's trips to England, France, Israel, Boston, Florida, and Los Angeles, all paid for by campaign funds or outside groups. Then we learned the Los Angeles trip came after Rosenberger got a tip that Disney was considering Cincinnati as a location for its new Star Wars movie studio. Cleveland.com reports it was a bogus tip, but Rosenberger failed to check it out before booking his luxury accommodations in L.A. Now there's a bill that would ban lawmakers from taking international trips paid by outside groups. Jackie Borchard, you had the story about the Disney trip and what went into it. Was it a waste of time?
Well, the House Republicans would say no, it's not a complete waste of time because they did some other things on this trip, visited some other studios. But the purpose of the trip was to meet with Disney officials because former House Speaker Rosenberger had met with a man by the name of Elliot Winks, who purported to be from a group called D6 Capital Partners. Saying that they're going to build this studio. And so instead of, picking up the phone or having an aide send an email off to his friends at Disney, he booked a trip to LA and then come to find out in the meeting with Disney officials finds out it is not the case. They don't know who this Elliot Winks person is or what D6 Capital Partners is. That company has no web presence. It's not a registered business in Ohio. I mean, all things that you probably could have checked out with a Google search, before you fly there.
His name was Winks.
His name was Winks. Right.
And remember, a couple of the Disney characters are Goofy and Daffy Duck. So,
I mean, the Disney puns on this are pretty endless.
Yes.
Could it have just been an excited public official who thought this was a golden opportunity to help Ohio's economy?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole reason for the meeting was that former Senate President Dick Feinen arranged this meeting. He's now the mayor of Evendale outside of Cincinnati, and that was supposedly where the studio was going to locate. And so he said, Rosenberg, you got to meet with this guy. They met alone in Rosenberger's office, and then it goes on from there.
So you'd have assumed that Dick Feinen would have done his due diligence. So that's a mistake that Cliff should not have relied upon Feinen's recommendation.
and sometimes things that seem strange, like Jim Rhodes, when he was governor, read about Honda maybe wanting to put a motorcycle plant in Ohio. And he went to Japan and got the plant and got the auto thing. So, I mean, sometimes these things work out and some things they're crazy.
The question is, the other side of the question is, Julie, did he have to stay in 5-star hotels instead of the Holiday Inn Express, where you can get really smart, according to the ads?
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is they're acting as if they're CEOs of big corporations, and perhaps they're taking their lead from our governor, who likes to jet around quite a bit with the help of Jobs Ohio. A lot of his stuff is undocumented for that reason. But it's you can go on the public dime a little bit less luxuriously.
Well,
But this was
you should
private
note
money.
that this was money. Yeah, this was money from the House Republicans' campaign account, which came from donors across the state and candidates that pour money in there. So that, I mean, they're making a point to say there's nothing illegal that happened with this travel. It was all above board.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots, perhaps some predictions for the week ahead. Terry, you're up first.
Well, the big question is after May 8th, will people be able to come together? Obviously, things got brutal in this primary, but the other thing to look for on May 8th is turnout, and I think it's going to be low. So the question is, who's turning out between the swamp and the establishment?
Herb.
If indeed Melanie wins the primary, that race will now be a #1 target nationally for the Democrats.
Julie.
I'm truly curious how gubernatorial candidate Joe Schiavone is going to do on Tuesday. He has run sort of a low-key race, but I follow his Twitter, and he's all over the place more than any other candidate, so it'll be interesting to watch.
And Jackie.
Well, on Friday, May 11th, a Franklin County judge could decide whether or not to put Ohio's medical marijuana program on hold. So that's something to watch after the primary.
The company is called Relief, which is kind of cool. LEAF. That's right. A consortium of, a fledgling consortium is just getting going of just about every media outlet in the state. Newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, and some civic groups are trying to put together a coalition to take control of the debates starting this fall, where journalists and the public will have the say on the format and who gets to ask the questions and the rules and all that stuff. And we hope it works, because the debates belong to the people, not to the campaigns. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check us out at our website, WOSU.org, where you can check our election coverage as well. For our crew, for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.